Hi, my name is Cecil Baumann and I'm your host and the founder of the company Ganz in Bewegung. I'm a movement and Alexander technique specialist. My business serves holistic thinking people who want to improve their mind-body connection. Our interview today will be with Tessa Viotti, a creative somatic educator, artist, and Alexander technique teacher. We are so excited to have her here. But before I bring her up, I want to share what I mean by mind-body connection. The Ganz in Bewegung system we developed includes 7 defining components of being human. For non-German speakers, the meaning of Ganz in Bewegung is the whole of you in motion, which includes your movement, your body, your surrounding, your experience, your emotion, your thinking, and it's all connected with your breathing, and all is interconnected with each other. Today, we have the distinct pleasure of speaking with Tessa Viotti, a remarkable South African-born artist and certified Alexander technique teacher, currently residing in the vibrant city of Milan, Italy. Tessa's artistic journey is a tapestry woven from her deep passion for movement, expression, and the intricate connections between the body and creativity. With roots in classical ballet and dance, she has cultivated a unique understanding of physicality and artistry that transcends traditional boundaries. Graduating from Cape Town under the guidance of internationally recognized teacher trainer Walter Vaughan Jones, Tessa has embarked on a path filled with rigorous training and exploration. Her postgraduate studies are a testament to her dedication and curiosity, immersing herself in the depth of the Alexander technique science under the mentorship of Dr. Tim Cacciatore and Dr. Patrick Johnson, while also expanding her knowledge through teachings like Bruce Furtman's Peaceful Body School and Penelope Easton's 12 Fundamentals of Integrated Movement. This extensive training culminates in a holistic approach to understanding how our bodies can free us creatively. Tessa's artistic pursuits are complemented by a rich educational background in fine art, where she honed her skills in classical life drawing, portraiture, and painting at the esteemed studio of Signorina Simi in Florence. Simi's profound mantra, "Remember, I am your guide, nature is your teacher," resonates deeply with Tessa's philosophy as she navigates both art and movement. Concurrently, while in Italy, she trained to become a yoga teacher with Donna Holman, which emphasizes a holistic awareness that reflects in her creative output. Returning to South Africa after her time abroad, Tessa embraced teaching yoga in both Cape Town and Johannesburg, further deepening her connection to the body as an instrument of expression. Her commissioned work as an artist showcases finally detailed charcoal portraits of children and animals, pieces that capture not only likeness but also emotion and character. At the heart of Tessa's practice is an inspiring vision. She seeks to work with herself and others through the body constructively and creatively, exploring themes of postural tone, constructive thinking in activity, breathing techniques, and the fine art of freeing oneself up are central to her work. As she invites us to reflect on these concepts during our discussion today, we anticipate an enriching conversation that will shed light on the intersections of art, movement, self awareness, and health. Join us as we delve into Tessa's journey from her early days in South Africa to her life in Italy and discover how she blends her passions for teaching, art making, and body awareness into a cohesive practice that inspires others to connect more deeply with themselves through their physical experience. Please join me in welcoming Tessa Viotti. Hi, Tessa!
Hi, Cecile.
Pleasure!
Hi, good to see you.
Good to talk to you today.
Yes,
Wonderful. How is it at your side in Italy? Is it nice
it's
weather?
a lovely sunny day.
Lovely sunny, also hot or not so hot?
No, it's cooler now, thank goodness,
Oh, good.
because it's autumn, but yeah, 'cause in the summer it's really, really hot.
Yeah, I think here it will get hot too at the weekend, so 26 degrees or something.
Yeah,
So I'm looking
yeah.
forward to have a little bit more sunny and warmth.
No, we're over the extreme heat, which is good.
Yeah, okay, so it's different. It's
Yeah,
more
no, we're
south,
over
of
the
course.
extreme heat. Yeah.
Tessa, you have the diverse background that spans art, dance, yoga, and the Alexander technique. Can you share your personal journey and how each of these experiences has influenced your current practice?
Thanks, Cecile, and thank you so much for this opportunity to share my, what can I say, my walk with Alexander. But I do realize because of my background, I draw a lot on all my different experiences. And movement, as you said, has been so much a part of my life. But I think the technique allows you to come to a deep understanding of movement. But I think one of the things that because one of my passions is actually drawing more than anything else. So I feel like that's exactly what I do, is I draw on the experiences I've had. And I think probably a deep one on that front would be using imagination and really, rooting the principles of the Alexander technique in encouraging people to imagine and understand their movement.
Yeah, I think that's a big one with the imagination. And what do you do if they have troubles imagining some parts? Do you use also pictures or anatomy apps or whatever to help them?
Yes, especially teaching online, it's very useful to be able to use imagery and also to draw on their experiences in life. Because I think just as I've got a extensive history, so do other people, and to really share that experience and see what's meaningful for them and how they can use their experience in learning the process.
Yeah, that's so interesting because people have different kinds of pictures they are attracted to, isn't it? So it's so individual. So it's a very good approach to listen to what they how they learn or how
Yes,
they
because they
perceive.
come as a student with a whole background themselves,
Yeah.
which I like to work with
So
because I
you
think
also give
that becomes very creative.
so you also give homework like find a picture that expresses what
I will
you
definitely
experience.
encourage them to do their own explorations. Yes.
Ah, so good. That sounds so
Yes.
interesting. You describe your approach as natural by nature. Could you elaborate on what this means and how it ties into your philosophy of movement and well-being?
I do think that we need to honor the innate wisdom of the body. I actually think that the body naturally has an ability to express itself and live freely. But we tend to interfere with it. So I try to, in my thinking, is to keep an attitude of really remembering that the body has its own innate wisdom that we can work with.
Is it as if it gets lost? So, a kind of, and you wake it up again? Or how could we imagine, or people who don't know the word, imagine what this means? You know, it's in me, but I have a bad posture. So, what she's talking about, people can get confused.
Yes, I do think that we need to remember that in essence, we are okay if we remember how we moved as children
Yeah.
or, when we were actually reasonably well balanced, but then so much happens that interferes with that. So from that point of view, we don't need to try and fix ourselves, but really discover that natural, easy way of working with ourselves.
In your work, you emphasize the significance of good posture tone. Can you explain why you believe it's essential to our health as nutrition and exercise?
I think that it's such a fundamental part of our integration of our whole system and our coordination. We can often be over tense, hyper tense, or we can fall into collapse. But essentially, working with coming to more of a balanced, integrated whole in our coordination, and really understanding the body also in space, we are able to bring a certain tone into the body that allows us to sense that integration, which is more of our natural way of being.
Okay, that sounds like a great idea. So, not too much tension, not collapsing, something in between.
Yes, and I think if we don't interfere too much
Mm-hmm.
with our general way we move and are in the world, that naturally finds its balance.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I mean, when we are children, we don't move consciously. Yes. So I think it's the process of now learning it consciously, how we worked it out unconsciously as children. Now, you as an Alexander teacher and me, we try or we help people to regain the natural coordination, movement, and tone actually consciously.
Exactly. We actually are able, because so much is happening unconsciously,
Yeah.
but without us even realizing from when we're young, we are falling more and more into those sort of habits of unconsciousness. And now we can work consciously because we have an ability to think and to raise ourselves to a certain level of consciousness.
The Alexander technique integrates mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical aspects of the body. How do these elements interplay in your teaching, and why is it crucial for someone to consider their whole self?
I just don't think that we're only physical, just as you've described it. We have all these different aspects that need to be brought into our consciousness so that we have a more expanded awareness of every aspect of ourselves. It's interesting from my experience with drawing and life drawing, especially, and someone like Leonardo da Vinci, that, his work with anatomy, one of the books I actually have is called Temple of the Soul. So even though he's going into the detail of anatomy and it's something that we use in the technique just for understanding, we're not anatomists, but we definitely come to understand the body in activity. And you just realize that there's so many aspects that you need to include to have an integrated meaning of how we move in the world. So I think it definitely brings in everything. And when the body gets interfered with, the tensions that arise can often be a holding of emotion. So, we were talking about the tone and the balance. When we go into traumatic situations, that will be embedded in the body. So I think every area needs to be addressed. And I think that's where an Alexander technique teacher has to be a bit of a hold all
Mm-hmm.
and to create that safe space for people to be able to explore and become aware of every aspect of themselves.
Yeah, yeah, it makes sense. You know, if you have a traumatic experience, and that's why you're holding so tense.
Yes.
If you don't address the emotions behind, you can't let go the tension because this is trying to save you
Yes,
from
and I
any
think that's
danger,
what
you
I
know?
think that's what I was meaning about the
Mm-hmm.
intelligence of the body,
Mm-hmm.
which we really need to respect,
Yeah.
because that the body looks after us. You know, it really is our home. It's where we live, and that's really what we are coming to explore.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love it. This expanded awareness. What does this look like in practice? And how can individuals start becoming more aware of their own bodily habits?
I think this is where it moves into understanding the principles of the technique, which for me is fundamentally learning to take that time to become aware. Because it's very difficult to become aware and to come into that sense of presence if we're permanently on the rush. So experiencing coming to quiet and really just even now becoming aware of being present where you and I are automatically shifts the understanding of your sense of self in space and in time, and affords you the opportunity to explore.
Yeah, so how does the Alexander technique help individuals recognize and reduce patterns of neuromuscular tension? Can you share some practical tools or techniques that listeners can begin using immediately?
Well, for me, leading from what I've just said, one of the best practices is taking time to lie down every day, which is a wonderful Alexander technique that brings like a restorative conscious rest to the whole body. Sometimes I like to talk about the body as a system because there are so many aspects to it. So just allowing your whole system just to be supported by the floor. We normally have a support behind the head with the legs bent, and it just allows the body to experience a conscious rest and restoration.
And this will help to unlearn or to reduce tension and then to reduce patterns. Like,
Yeah,
will
it's
this
just
change?
just as an introduction to something which you can do on your own, because you can't go wrong if you're supported by the floor.
Okay, okay, good. Yeah, it's just if you stand up and then you tense again, you know, you haven't changed your pattern of standing up and holding yourself upwards. So that's that's like you probably get more aware, huh?
Much
If
more
you
aware.
practice the lying down,
Exactly.
it's
Practice the
actually
lying
making
down,
you aware of this.
making you very aware.
Yeah.
Yes.
So actually it can change patterns if you are really taking the time to rest.
Yeah, I would say that it's a really, really useful daily practice.
Oh, yeah. And how long should we lie down daily?
Probably about 15, 20 minutes. That gives a tremendous restoration, especially along the spine, that one can really experience a lengthening and a widening of the whole back. That if you think about it, we're sitting up now and there's a lengthening and a widening. But, you know, with time, especially sitting in front of computers, we sort of fall into these habits without realizing it. And that's where to come to that balanced resting place just allows the body to reset itself,
Yeah.
especially if you don't understand a lot, if you're balancing it with lessons and with help from someone. At least you know that when you lie on the floor, it's almost like gravity is doing it for you, which I like to always mention
Mhm.
because I think there are forces in nature that really do give us support, and we can literally receive the support from the ground and experience a let go.
Yeah. The nature by nature.
natural by nature.
A natural, yeah.
Yeah. If we
Natural
tap into it and we
by nature.
remember, I think half the time we forget that we
Yeah.
are standing on this. This is the sort of creative imagination I used to like to use. We're standing on an enormous planet.
Yeah.
It makes me think of the book, in the moment, it makes me think of the book, The Little Prince.
Yeah, that's true.
He's
I
a
love it.
tiny little person on this huge planet. And I do think that Alexander's work is like a philosophical, a practical metaphysics, very practical philosophical approach to living life. Because we're living in a body, and how do we live in a body that lands up falling into all sorts of things we don't even know we're doing?
Yeah, yeah. You know, some say, I'm lying down when I go to sleep. Isn't it enough to restore? What do you think?
My sense is lie down on the floor before you get into bed.
So the magic happens on the floor,
I
not in
think
the
it's
soft
because
bed.
the floor operates like a mirror. It sort of
Okay.
mirrors, and you've got gravity and you've got the anti-gravitational forces. So there's support.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas when we get into bed, we can also land up doing all sorts of
Crunched.
things. Yeah.
Yeah. You use gentle guiding touch alongside verbal instruction in your sessions. How does this tactile aspect enhance the learning experience? And what might someone expect during a session with you?
I think that this is really the heart of so much of the Alexander technique training to become a teacher, that we really do learn how to transmit an experience of freer movement to a student. And touch is one of our primary senses.
Yes.
So I know right now we have eyes and we have ears and we have all these different senses, but touch is, really a fundamental sense and very, very powerful. So the more experience I can, with hands-on, give a student of coming to understand a little bit of freedom, a little bit of ease, the student realizes there's a possibility, there's a potential. There's something else here that they maybe didn't know about, or they do know because they've just maybe forgotten. I think that you almost reactivating that natural use that they have that maybe is bound up in patterning.
But given the rise of online learning platforms, how do you adapt the principles of the Alexander technique for virtual sessions? What unique challenges or advantages have you encountered in this format?
Very interesting, because for me, COVID opened up a whole new world. And I do think it's an experience that can help people enormously. I think the call it the negative side is you don't have that personal, in-person, actual physical contact. So I honestly think the best way is a hybrid approach. But I've landed up, because of COVID, transporting so much of my work onto online. And in that COVID period, meeting colleagues all around the world. And certainly for me, it makes me think, well, Alexander never had hands.
Mm-hmm.
He worked this on experimenting, on discovering. He worked with mirrors. He came to understand what he was doing. Even with colleagues and online, we have an opportunity to do that now because of all the work he did. And I find it an amazing way to explore online people learning to consciously use their thinking and not to rely on hands.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can go for an Alexander lesson and have an experience, but then what do you do for the rest of the time?
That's true.
And yes, lying down and a lot of things that you learn in a lesson you can put into practice, but probably one of the most important things is learning to think.
Yeah.
We think we're thinking all the time, but are we thinking, or is it habitual thinking?
Yeah, that the kind of thinking we use, we talked about thinking in activity. It's a
Thinking in activity.
completely different kind of thinking because it's thinking in the moment and not thinking
Exactly.
about what I have to buy tomorrow or find out in an hour.
Yeah. And taking it back to why I love natural by nature, it's the nature of our thought
Ah,
that will actually impact how we move, how we live, how we relate, how we behave. And Alexander saw that. Initially, he had a physical problem, and many people, including myself, we come because of physical issues. But very quickly, we learn that it's so much about the nature of life
yes.
and what we're dealing with as a whole experience.
Yeah. I mean, I'm so grateful for this technique because we are standing here now, each on the computer. And if I wouldn't know about the technique and being aware of myself while being in front of the computer, I will completely lose myself in the computer. I would
Exactly.
disappear. And yeah, at the end of the day, I will wake up and feel ache and pains everywhere. I would be exhausted
Exactly.
and without even knowing that I'm doing this. So I'm so grateful that I had the chance to learn this before COVID because then I was a lot on the computer and I was not suffering. I didn't have to suffer. So
Yes, and this experience in front of the computers is one of the amazing applications of this work
yeah.
because most of the time we're operating here. And you have to ask yourself, have I remembered that I've got feet? Where am I sitting? Am I on a chair?
Where am I?
Where am I?
Yeah.
And the other thing which I find very useful with being online is we look into each other's spaces. So we have like this 360-degree view of life
Mm-hmm.
that you can work with.
Yeah, that's interesting. And you can really use also those kind of things they have at home when you are
Yes.
teaching. What do you have? What kind of glass you have around you? Can you lift it up for a moment and see what you're doing? And those
Yes,
kind of things.
I was teaching a lesson recently where I used the imagination of pencils. And I
Ah,
literally was working with pencils to understand that, we have to explore this balance between soft and hard
mhm.
and how to, those are your range of pencils, your HB pencil, which is essentially the balance.
Ah, that's good.
So with that, people remember, when I pick up a pencil, where am I? Am I hard? Is there a little bit of softness? So
Mhm.
it lends itself to a lot of exploration.
Yeah. You state that anyone at any age can benefit from your process. Can you share some success stories or example of how different individuals have found value in your teaching?
I do think that this work works brilliantly, whatever the age, because accessing children before a lot of things lock into their bodies allows them to develop this awareness even when they're young. I think one of a fun process I do called the high five has really helped a friend of mine who was very, very stressful, in a very stressful situation at work, in her office, and having to change jobs eventually. And I think that really, she fed back to me how useful it was to work with this simple process that allowed her to navigate a really, really stressful situation. So I think whether you're young or whether you're old or whatever your work is in life, I think it's very, very easy to apply because you're working with your instrument, your body.
Can you elaborate on how incorporating these principles into daily life can lead to an overall improvement in well-being? So you said, I wonder, about the pencil thing. I can imagine that this affects the whole body. If you're a very hard holder
Or driving your car.
or driving a little car like this, yes, it has a big impact. But probably you have another example
Do
why
you
it
know
has an
what? I
impact.
love the simplest example of every day we brush our teeth.
Mm-hmm.
Most of us have some sort of mirror in front of us when we brush our teeth. Just pause. Just take a little bit of time before you gain your end of brushing your teeth. And immediately it'll open up because, again, a bit like the computer now is a mirror, it opens you up to the space around you. Because most of the time, I'd imagine when you're brushing your teeth, there's tomorrow. What happened today? And the mind is going, I like to describe it as a washing machine.
Mm-hmm.
But if you stop and look at yourself in the mirror, you are automatically engaging a principle, the fundamental principle of the technique. And then it becomes an exploration if it interests you.
Many people struggle with anxiety and stress in their daily lives. How does your work help individuals manage these challenges effectively? You talked about your friend, and the high five. So can you probably share a little bit more for people out there who have not a chance to learn everything now, but just one thing?
I
Small
think
thing, yes.
when it comes to stress, stress can actually be healthy. If we had no stress, we'd just be, I don't know, what would we be? Blobs on the ground. So I think it's more that I think we have to reframe stress. And I do love the way Alexander talks about stimulus response. So stresses are just lots of stimuli coming in, or stimuli coming in from out from inside us, because we have both. And I think we just need to work with it in a way of, again, a little bit of stopping, a little bit of high-fiving. High five is a very positive action. A little bit of stopping that helps you to reframe that maybe there's nothing wrong with stress. We're just needing to learn how to work with it.
Mm-hmm. It's a mindset shift, like
I think
high
it's a big
five,
one.
we
Yeah,
can manage stress. Yes.
exactly. Exactly. There's a way to work with it. And I do think that that's what Alexander offers, is a tremendous array of tools and practices that we can use in our daily lives to work with life.
It's also improving performance in creative arts or in sports. And how does enhancing awareness and postural translate into better performance for artists, especially? How does your art changed through the posture changes? Could you share this with us?
Well, I've definitely noticed my creativity change over the years because I was involved in very classical drawing. So very realistic. It was like going back into the Renaissance when I was living in Florence, which was an amazing experience. But I do find as my whole system shifts and changes, there's that sense of flow, of a very different movement. I can move into detail still, but not as tight. So there's even in the detail, because my work is very detailed, it's freer. Because I do think there is detail in life, and we have to be pretty particular about things, but you can still have a free, general way of working with detail. So I think that would be my example, but I do think that there are amazing teachers around the world working with performance in the arts, and obviously in so many sports now, swimming, even dentistry, running, yoga. I definitely have worked with yoga students, and I'm no longer really practicing yoga, but because of my experience, I know exactly how to apply the principles into yoga.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's what I love about the technique, is it brings it down to a simplicity of starting here.
Yeah.
And then taking it into whatever you want to do. And then you have the awareness of maybe when you are tightening or something's happening where you sort of think, what's going on here? And you have a reference. There's a tremendous reference through understanding the principles.
And I could imagine, that when you draw like you did before, these detailed things with a lot of tension, it looked very nice, of course. But I think it looks even nicer now and more detail, and you can probably stay longer in this particular fine art, little focus thing. And everybody working with the hand in detail and have to go close and know detail, and like dentists or jewelry maker, how do you say?
Jewelry designer.
Yes,
Yes.
yes. I mean, or also, clockmakers. Those are so detailed work, and they have to be so focused. And when they lose their bodies and they are so tense, I mean, they must be in a big trouble at the end of the day. And I think you tell us now it's possible to draw still very focused, very little things, very clear, without those tensions. Yes?
Yeah, well, if I am doing a very detailed drawing, I might land up going back into my patterning because of the tightness. But I
Mm-hmm.
know how to work with it.
Mm-hmm. That's
And definitely I would, if I've been sitting for a long period of time, I will lie down. I will work with it because life carries on, and we do actually still have to work with our patterning.
yeah, yeah. And
It's a
if
process.
you would
It's
have
a process.
learned it probably before, you wouldn't have those patterns developed. Yes. That's my hope. I think the earlier people know about this work,
Exactly.
it will take away so much troubles, because you don't
Yeah.
have all those patterns who are disturbing your posture and your alignment. It would be so much easier. Life would be so much fun, more
Yes,
fun.
and I think teachers that work a lot with children do an amazing, and it's interesting that Alexander also had the little school because he realized how important it was to get this work into schools with little
Mhm.
children.
Yeah, yeah. I hope it will come more and more, also here in Switzerland or Italy. Yeah, but you
Well,
offer.
we do have Maria Montessori here, and those were Alexander technique
Yeah.
teachers. They were Montessori teachers.
Mhm.
And I do think that that is a learning process, which is incredible because you've got the more experienced learning from the younger. Sorry, the more experienced teaching the younger, and the younger children learning from the older. So I think this is where this work works with all ages.
Mhm.
Because I know that I had a kid once in South Africa that I was working with, and I learned something from him.
Mhm.
He was moving, and we were talking about heads leading and things like that. I can't remember the lesson exactly. But I said to him, in an animal, what leads? And I was expecting the answer, the head, because they're on all fours. He said, the nose. And that shifted my teaching.
Yeah.
Where you actually realize that so much of the time, if the balance of the head is there, we're moving with the nose.
That's so interesting. Yeah, and most of the animals can't see so much, you know. They go with the nose.
The
So true.
nose is one of their most acute senses. Yeah,
Yeah, and we lose it almost a
and
bit.
we lose
We
it.
don't use it so much.
Yeah, yeah.
You offer support specifically for cancer survivors through your work. Can you share how the principles of the Alexander technique can be particularly beneficial for this demographic?
Yes, I have specifically been through cancer myself. And in fact, I was in my training when I was ill and had to stop my Alexander technique training, but already had enough of the principles to use them while I was going through the process. But I actually think more importantly for me now is having come through the whole experience, I understand how vulnerable one is through the whole process. But more importantly, what happens after when you come through it? Because I think when you're going through a major health challenge, it could be anything, because I even had sort of back issues when I was younger, which is why I had to stop dancing and got into yoga and eventually the technique. It's more what happens afterwards and how you have to manage what you've been through. Everybody helps you at the time because you're going through treatment and there's a lot happening. But afterwards, you come away and you've had this incredibly intense experience. And then you really need to be able to give support to yourself. And I have landed up doing workshops with certainly one cancer group in particular in America called the Fresh Chapter. And they're an amazing organization that gives support to cancer patients, either in while they're going through the illness or afterwards. And just being able to share these principles and the different tools that we can use, I know gives support to me. So I know that the experience will offer support to other people, that they can just remember how to work with their body that is anyway going through a massive amount of stuff. And how you feel afterwards. You're vulnerable, there's a lot of fear, and how to work with it, because it's quite a unique experience.
Thank you for sharing that.
You know, because you don't know, you go into a big unknown when you go through a chronic illness or a big difficulty. It could be any difficulty.
Yeah.
And I do think that the principles literally guide you through the unknown.
You reference FM Alexander's quote about giving nature her opportunity in relation to growth and change. How does this philosophy guide your approach as both a teacher and an artist?
Just repeat that quote again. I want to hear it again.
The quote was
I love this quote, by the way.
yeah, was about giving nature her opportunity in relation to growth and change.
My sense is, if you think about it, we can't necessarily do the change. Otherwise, we're probably going to be forcing it and fixing it and probably trying too hard. There's something wrong. I've got to make it right. But if we're able to work with creating the atmosphere for change, something can happen.
Well explained.
That's my understanding of that quote. And I think that that's what we do through the stopping, through the support of the earth, through breathing, through all the different aspects we work with, because the Alexander technique is multifaceted. Very simple, but our habits can be complex. So the more we create the atmosphere for change, the more we are open to it.
Mm-hmm.
Because it happens indirectly. If I think of things that I've been through in my life, I think, how did I come out of that? I don't know. But I know I've been working with myself constantly, constructively, consciously. And I guess there's a tremendous amount of trust in that. Trusting that, okay, something's shifting,
Mm-hmm.
possibly, maybe. We need to be curious. We need to be open.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think because you have such good tools and worked so much on it, it's you have this trust. And people who don't know, they probably they don't trust their bodies because, you know, it's hurting, it's damaged, it's ill, whatever. So they need to find a trust. That's very interesting. And for those curious about exploring the Alexander technique further, what advice would you offer them about getting started? What can they expect from their first lesson, let's say?
Well, it obviously depends where they are and where they go. As I say, I do quite a lot online. And then if possible, if someone's local, I will bring in an in-person session. But whatever you choose to do or wherever you choose to go, I think the most important thing is to give yourself and the teacher and the principals an opportunity to be experienced. So my sense is, unless you don't like it after the first session, give yourself an opportunity of at least 5 lessons so that you can get a sense of what it's all about and not judge it after one session. Because it is a process, it is a means whereby it's an opportunity to work with yourself. And that affords the teacher and the student and the work, it gives it a good chance. And then afterwards you can carry on exploring or choose to do it once a month or however you wish to do it. But I do think one has to give oneself a good, at least 5 lessons at the beginning.
Mm-hmm. A high five.
Yeah, which is what I basically do through the high five. It's a wonderful experience of actually understanding most of the principles of the technique through this practice of 5 lessons.
Ah, so it's a process. This high five, it's a
Yeah,
process through 5 lessons with themes and principles you
exactly. That
explain.
will cover. So the introduction is obviously in the first lesson, but then going through various aspects of the technique within the 5 lessons.
Yeah, and you work closely to the individual, as I heard.
I think for me personally, it's like waking up in someone what they already know.
Yeah,
They already know this because
yeah.
we're all very different, but we all live in a body.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think it's a way of, it's not where I live, it's where they live.
Yeah.
And their life has so much experience that they can draw on, and they can actually see, oh wow.
That's working for them.
I did a practice the other day with someone, and she immediately fed back to me, well, it was a lying down practice, but on the front of the body, not on the back. And that's how she sleeps in bed.
Okay.
So she immediately could relate to it. We were doing it on the floor, so it's a way of working. But it helped her to realize, well, okay, maybe there's some things in my life that I'm doing that I could explore that are interesting.
Yeah, and that's what we want.
Yeah, you want to empower the person. And I think that that's where online work works as well, because people have to go away and they literally have to think about it themselves and use it in their lives.
As we conclude this insightful conversation with Tessa Viotti, I want to extend my heartfelt thanks to her, to you, for sharing your journey, wisdom, and the transformative principles of the Alexander Technique with us today. And I believe our listeners will also find great value in your teachings.
Thank you, and thank everyone listening. But for me, that is really what the technique is about, is really coming to experience your own heart, and very much connected to the breath. I think that that's which we haven't really touched on. For me, the heart breath, really living from the heart, is the essence of the technique, because most of the time we are not really there because of all the interference. So my wish and my hope and my heart for everybody is just the freeing up really brings one home. And the breath is an amazing, amazing tool for calm, coming to calm and being present. And Alexander in the early days was called the breathing man, which tends to get forgotten.
Yeah, and that's why it's standing in the middle of ganz in Bewegung, because it's connected with everything.
Exactly. Exactly.
Breathing is life, and that's it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
So
for
thank
me, if
you.
there's one thing from this is high five to yourselves with the breath and the heart.
Wonderful. What a great finish. Thank you so much, Tessa, for being with us today. It's
Thank you.
wonderful. To our listener, thanks for joining us on this enriching episode of Ganz in Bewegung. We hope you feel inspired to explore the connections between body awareness and everyday living. If you're curious to delve deeper into Tessa's work or have any questions, we encourage you to reach out to her directly via email mtviotti@gmail.com and get a free introductory call. Additionally, don't forget to like and follow us on our YouTube channel, Ganz in Bewegung, where we continue to share more enlightening interviews and discussions about movement and well-being. For more information about our past interviews and resources, please visit our website. Thank you once again for being part of our community. Until next time, remember to move with ease and grace.